Well, everybody, it's 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, and I wanted to show off my new towel. Because I don't do silver. No, I don't do them anymore. But I do have a nice new towel. And I wanted to talk about a couple things before I get to show you a close-up of this new towel. Everybody's asking me what goes into one of these boxes. And Mark came over today and took the pre-burial box. And then now I'm keeping an inventory. So I put a list of what went in this box that Mark presumably has already buried. Where Mark knows. But I listed the things. I list them now as we put them in the box, and this is pretty typical of what would go in. So we started off with 1,400 dimes, 22 ounces of assorted silver, and then added another 300 dimes, then 5 Morgans, 15 slave queens, 15 triviums, 15 wood buffalo, 3 50-cent pieces, where the hell they came from, 12 quarters, 50 quarters, 5 peace dollars, 20 more assorted ounces, and 50 more dimes. And that filled the box up. So that's a typical, uh, one of these typical boxes you always hear me talking about. I got a pre-burial box, and then when that thing seems to have enough in it, then I call Mark up, and he comes over and gathers it up. And now, well, I'll add this to my inventory, and everything will be hunky-dory. We'll know basically within a couple of hundred ounces of what I have, I guess, or at least what's buried. But I want to mention a couple of things, and one of these is this beautiful town. Now we'll zoom in, take a little better look. Might have to move this junk off of it, but to get a better look. But let's start with this part of the town. Here was a half ounce. Don't tread on me. And on the other side, and the other side is, let's see, is the Boston Tea Party. And fortunately, I got this for, let's see, the spot was 28 something. I got 28 something. I got this for 20, I think 29.50. So half of that would have been 19. No, what the hell am I saying? Would have anyway. Would have been 14.75. Okay. Now here he didn't know that he had this one more proof set left, and I said, well, I'll take it if I can get it for the same price I got the quarters last week, and the quarters were just a bit were the same. They were a bit over spot, but they were the same as junk. So he said, yeah, I mean, it was the only one he had left, and these are the territories that the United States owns. They put them out in quarters, and this set had 6 quarters in it, whereas the other sets all had 5 in it because they did them in 10-year series. And then this piece of stuff showed up. Oops, look at the size difference in these things. Oh, that's a pound. 1 pound proof. But are we sure it's a proof? Let's see. Jared just gave me hell for even taking that out of the case to show it. But that is one beautiful piece of work. Now, my only problem is who it has on the face of it. Now, Kennedy comes up with this, everybody keeps quoting this speech, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. How absolutely ridiculous, absurd, and retarded, because governments are formed with the consent of the people, with the idea of doing good for the people. People are not citizens so that they can serve their government. Governments are constituted to serve their citizens. What a backward idea to think that we should worry about serving our government. Our government is responsible to us, not us to them. So that takes care of Kennedy. But there's a little thing come out recently on Richard Nixon. Now Nixon is a war criminal for sure, and back back in my protest days, uh, Nixon in 1972 comes out and says he has a plan. Well, he come out and I'm sorry in '68 and says he has a plan to end the war in Vietnam. Well, if you're going to serve the country, then you don't wait till you're elected to discuss a plan. You do it for the good of the country. You know how many people died after '68? Nixon didn't have any goddamn plan. And you know what happened in 1972? We have tapes, the famous Nixon tapes. Well, more and more of them are being released all the time. We have tapes of him and that war criminal Henry Kissinger, and Kissinger is advising Nixon not to end the war before the '72 election because it may cost them the election. Now, how ridiculous is this? That tens of thousands of Vietnamese, tens of thousands of American and a few Allied troops that were helping us died and were wounded and were mentally scarred because this son of a bitch was more worried about being reelected than saving a single American life, let alone thousands of them and tens of billions of dollars of our treasury. All right, so Nixon's a war criminal. Now, here's a thing I could never understand. Everybody would just goes crazy, every Republican, over Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan's promise when he came to Washington was to reduce government spending, take the bloat out of government. So this is what he did. Besides the criminal activity he did in Iran-Contra deal, and anybody that was around that time knows what I'm talking about, and anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about certainly should look it up because it was one of the one of the true constitutional crimes by a president in the modern era. But what's he do? He comes in to reduce the size of government and to reduce the budget, reduce the bloated system. So when he comes to office, uh, the national debt was $800 billion. 8 years later, when he left office, it was $2.4 trillion. Now it took 180 some years to get to $800 billion, and within 8 years he tripled the national debt. Now, by percentage wise, no president has ever done it. Those are 60. Those are 1980 dollars we're talking about. But regardless of how many there were, that he tripled the national debt. Now, if Obama was to triple the national debt, we would, by the end of Obama's year, we'd be $45 trillion in the hole instead of 15 or 17. It just, there's just no comparison. The man had suffered from dementia long before he ever left the presidential office. But as you know me, I'm not opinionated, so anybody that disagrees, by all means, just jump right on in. But aside from that, I'd probably like to get rid of this damn revolver because there's only so much you can take in this world anymore. You know what I mean? Listen, before Neutron or Big Silver or Silverfish or Epic jump over here to pull that trigger, I'd like to get rid of that damn thing. It's a 1856 Belgian rimfire, and I guess it's a cavalry gun due to this because if it popped out of your holster while you were riding, it was attached to a string or a rope or something. But anyway, so that's my new towel, and I hope everybody enjoys it, and maybe I'll have something else to rest on it later in the week.